Over the last 14 years, we have seen the character list of the Marvel Cinematic Universe increase rapidly, with each film adding more superpowered individuals, government agencies, and alien factions. In 2012, we saw the original Avengers form up for the first time, being a collection of the most interesting, powerful, and unique characters this universe has to offer. Now, you can see how far we have come in those 14 years by just looking at the current MCU landscape. Now, we have people like Doctor Strange, the Scarlet Witch, the Eternals, who have more cosmical and reality-changing powers in their fingertips than any of the original 6 heroes that defeated Loki in New York. Now, insane power levels don't guarantee good stories. In fact, they can actually be more detrimental than beneficial in the hands of a weak writer. And in the past, the MCU has done a brilliant job of allowing smaller stories with much more grounded characters take place within this mad and crazy universe, and allow them to still have weight and hit hard. A great example of this would be Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Having these types of stories make the MCU feel real to an extent. We can buy into it as reality. And I think that there has been one character that has been there since the very beginning that deserves his own story like this. I'm talking, of course, about Rhodey. So join me as I look into this character to see why I think he is the MCU's most underused Avenger. Look, let's address it straight away. Rhodey first appeared in the first Iron Man film, played by Terrence Howard, but was recast for the second film, which is where Don Cheadle came in to fill the role. Look, I don't know the ins and outs of why this happened. I'm sure that there is a reason, a bit of controversy and, a bit of gossip. But this whole thing sort of gives Rhodey this weird vibe in the first 2 outings, as the character and the dynamics between Tony and Rhodey is just slightly different between the 2 films, so the audience has to sort of reevaluate the character in the second outing. However, they are still the same character, and I think that Don Cheadle did a fantastic job coming into this role, picking up where Terrence left off and taking the character in his own direction. Now, when we first meet Rhodey, we're introduced to this military man. He's part of the US Air Force, being this liaison between the military and Stark Industries, which is where him and Tony become close friends. What I like about Rhodey is his strong moral principles, especially when it's in contrast to Tony's carefree attitude. You really got the sense that Rhodey was trying his best to keep Tony within the rules so as to keep him out of trouble, but Tony just kept on doing what he wanted without really thinking about the consequences. Rhodey's alignment to this idea of law and order is a key part to his character. Rhodey also fills quite a few scenes as the comic relief character. He is witty and has a great sense of humour. Even when in the midst of very serious situations, you can always count on Rhodey to crack a wise line, which actually is a trait that he shares with Tony. Unfortunately, I actually think the writers just saw Rhodey as this sort of funny sidekick to make jokes. And sometimes I think they sacrificed proper character just so that he could say a funny. And I think that's a really missed opportunity. Now, in Iron Man 2, we see Rhodey become the War Machine. And then in Iron Man 3, the Iron Patriot, which is just like a fancier version of War Machine. War Machine is basically Iron Man, but instead of focusing on the more technological-based weaponry which defines Stark's suit, there is this focus on heavy weapons. War Machine is loaded to the teeth with guns, rockets, bombs, a stun baton, and then the coolest part of his character design, the shoulder-mounted minigun, thematically tying him back to his military career and standing. Watching War Machine fight is just badass, as he packs heavy firepower and can do some serious damage. Now, in all honesty, we don't really know that much about Rhodey other than what we have seen on screen. As he was essentially Tony's sidekick, we haven't really explored his personal backstory, where he comes from, why he joined the military, what was his time in the military like, all those things. All that we know is that he is this extremely talented pilot for the Air Force. He's determined, he's driven, he is this trustworthy guy, and he's a loyal friend. So basically, there are these really strong foundations for a great character. They just need to be filled in and developed. When it comes to the hero side, I've always seen Rhodey as this interesting and different version of Iron Man. As we touched upon earlier, he has similar but slightly different powers to Tony Stark. But I think that there are things that set him apart. Number one is the awesomeness of the guns, 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 which is just pretty epic, makes for great action set pieces. And secondly, and most importantly, is Rhodey's combat experience. This is something that has not really been touched on yet, but Rhodey is a brilliant pilot. I would love to have seen his tactical military perspective be used more when it comes to the battles that we see him involved with. I think that they should have done more in highlighting how Rhodey and Tony's combat styles are different. Tony would just go in guns blazing without a plan, without strategy. He was cocky, but Rhodey would be more strategic in his approach. So we would see use of very similar abilities, but just in different ways to achieve the same thing. So when it comes to using his character going forward, yes, we've seen a lot of Iron Man, but we could see the Iron Man suit be used in different ways that add a different flavor to the hero. Rhodey was in favor of the Soviet Accords. We see him arrest Captain America and stand firm for his belief as he joins Tony to stop Cap and Bucky in the airport battle scene in Civil War, which ultimately ends in Rhodey being shot down out of the sky and being paralyzed from the waist down. But even despite this, we get this beautiful scene here that just shows Rhodey's determination and how he sticks to his principles regardless of what happens.
138 combat missions. Every one of them could have been my last, but I flew them because the fight needed to be fought. It's the same with these Accords. I signed because it was the right thing to do. It's a bad beat, but it hasn't changed my mind.
However, we do see that his support of the Accords, his alignment to law and order, is shaken in Infinity War, as we see him defy a direct order. And I think it would be really interesting to see how his relationship with the military, the government, is different and how it has been changed by the events of Infinity War and Endgame, something we haven't dived into for his character yet. Tony Stark's death really shook the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we really felt that in Spider-Man Far From Home. We saw Peter mourning and the loss of Tony, as well as the rest of the world as it paid its respect to Iron Man for his sacrifice in the fight against Thanos. So being able to see Rhodey's perspective, Tony's best friend, someone who's known him for much longer than anyone else, I think that would be really interesting. I think it would be interesting to see how Tony being gone affects Rhodey's life. As I said earlier, Rhodey is paralyzed from the waist down after the events of Civil War. I think we forget this. Without the technological support from Tony's inventions, the leg brace, the War Machine suit itself, Rhodey can't walk. We see his struggle in Endgame after Thanos bombs the Avengers combat just to get out of his suit and move around. He needs the support if he's to be mobile. It's made pretty clear that that is the technology that keeps him from walking, and that came from Tony. What if the suit breaks? What if the brace stops working? He's wheelchair bound. What does that mean for him? What does that do for him? There are so many different questions that could be asked about this man and his place in the MCU as a whole. In a story about Rhodey, we could get a deep exploration of a military officer who has had his faith in that law and order be shaken, kind of similar to what Cap went through in Winter Soldier. We could see a broken man who is physically dependent on the technology of his best friend, whom he's still mourning. We'll see someone who hides behind comedy and jokes to try to distract himself and others around him from his stress and anxiety. He would be dealing with all of these things whilst also still being a superhero, an Avenger, still being the War Machine, as he tries to find his identity in that world as his own hero, not just some knockoff of Iron Man. Whether that manifests itself in a different role in the team, being more tactical within the team itself, or whether that is a more heavy artillery position that he uses to gain advantage in combat. I don't know, but there are many different avenues one could go down when it comes to the action and the combat scenarios in the film. And what I love is that the best part of all these story threads would be channeled into a performance from an outstanding actor. Don Cheadle, who definitely has the emotional range and acting prowess to hold up a film as a lead and do a damn good job of it. We know Rhodey will be returning in Armor Wars, and I really do hope we get more of him. His little cameo in Falcon and Winter Soldier gave us this taste of a more serious and less quippy, more grounded and down-to-earth version of the character that we've seen before, and I would love to see him get the focus and the love that he deserves. I think that his character is such untapped potential for good storytelling, building off someone that we know and developing them in ways that is interesting and challenging. And I really hope that, having watched this video, that you agree with me. Let's just hope he gets some good treatment in the years to come. Thank you guys for listening, for watching. I can't believe the last video I made is just kind of blown up, and that's ridiculous. So if you're watching because you watched that, hello. I like to make videos talking about films, TV, games, anything nerdy basically. I'll just ramble on about it, give you my thoughts. So if you haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button, like the video, comment on it, anything that helps the algorithm, because it's a crazy beast that no one understands. That would be wonderful. And yeah, I will see you all on the next video. Thank you very much. Bye.